Kurt and Eve are a refugee couple. Because of a great disaster in their homeland, they have migrated to a foreign country. After a long journey, they arrive at a slum-like settlement. The area is barely a suburb and is so short of food and water that they have to rely on government aid. While Kurt and his wife are observing the situation, a soldier spots them. When the soldier demands to touch the pregnant Eve's belly, Kurt and Eve flee in fear. After a while, they run into a man named John. John is a human smuggler who helps people cross borders illegally. Although they don't trust him at first, Kurt and his wife have no other choice and decide to pay him. However, in this era, money is useless, so John refuses to take it. Instead, Kurt has to give him the meat they hunted during their journey. Since that isn't enough, they even have to hand over Eve's ancestral diamond necklace. Following John's guidance, they enter through a tunnel. Unfortunately, as soon as they emerge, they are caught by a security patrol and arrested. Once they are taken to the detention camp, they see many other refugees just like them. The doctors pick out the pregnant Eve and her husband for an examination. When the doctor finds out Eve is carrying a child, he doesn't seem very happy. On the other hand, a doctor named Len examines Kurt. Dr. Len is quite surprised because Kurt is an exceptionally fertile man. Since there are very few fertile men left in this era, Kurt unexpectedly becomes a VIP. In reality, this city has banned women from getting pregnant to control the massive population explosion. The citizens are forced to take contraceptives, and pregnancy without registration is strictly forbidden. Even if someone registers to have a child, the taxes are so high that only the wealthy can afford it. Furthermore, even those who can afford it must use IVF, in vitro fertilization, instead of natural birth. Because the government frequently administers contraceptive shots, most people have become infertile. That is why fertile men like Kurt are highly sought after. However, Kurt is told that if he wants to live in the city, he can no longer see Eve. Since the government only provides support for two people, he must choose between Eve and the unborn baby. Kurt tries to escape while being detained, but he fails. After talking to other inmates, he realizes that many people like him have been captured and held there. In the city, the citizens are holding massive protests against the ban on pregnancy. One day, Kurt intentionally injures himself so he can be sent to the clinic. Once there, he pleads with the doctor to let him see Eve. But the doctor has no authority and cannot grant his request. The plan is to let Eve give birth and then kill the baby. Only then will Kurt and Eve be allowed to live together. After thinking it over, Kurt pretends to accept the deal but demands to see Eve before the birth. However, after meeting his wife, Kurt changes his mind and decides to escape instead. On the day of the delivery, he restrains the female doctor and rescues Eve through a ventilation shaft. Luckily, they run into Dr. Len on their way out and take him hostage. With no other choice, Dr. Len has to take them to his home. When they arrive, Len's wife gives Kurt and Eve fresh clothes. Seeing Eve's pregnant belly, the wife is so touched that she allows them to stay for the night. Len, however, is terrified that they will all be punished if caught. That night, Eve accidentally slips in the bathroom. She starts bleeding from her pregnancy, and they have to rush her to the hospital immediately. Although the baby is successfully delivered, sadly, Eve passes away during childbirth. Kurt is heartbroken over his wife's death, but he is granted legal custody of the baby. In the end, Kurt takes up arms and hits the streets to rebel against the evil system. And so, the story ends. After watching this movie, if any of you are fertile, I'd advise you not to visit this city. Thank you.